Okay, we continue in Sefer Shmuel Aleph. We're on Perek Ches. We're in the middle of discussing various philosophical aspects of the Jewish people asking for a king. And so far we've seen a lot of negative aspects of what the Jewish people were asking for. We brought a few pieces from Rabbi Tzadok of how this request for asking for a king was something that would why it would ultimately end in avodah zorah for the Jewish people. And we're going to continue a few more aspects here. So the Barbanel on Sefer Dvarim, where the mitzvah is given, he has a very dim perspective in monarchy in general. And he says that there's no mitzvah in Sefer Dvarim when it says, Som tasiv alecha melech, you shall put upon yourself a king. He says it's not actually a mitzvah, but rather it's a foretelling of what's going to happen after the Jewish people will conquer the land. Hashem knows that the Jewish people will be ingrates, and they didn't need a king to conquer the land, as they've already conquered the land. It says after you conquer the land, and you'll want a king because you want to be equivalent to the nations who already have a king. And Abravanel says that this is foolish because they should have asked for a king when you entered the land, before you conquered the land. That's when you need a king, not after you enter the land. You need a king to do the battles for you. So they want a king not because they need one, but because they want to be like all the other nations of the world. So therefore he says that this mitzvah is not a chiyuvi, it's not an obligatory mitzvah. You know, for example, there is a mitzvah in the Torah for a man to give his wife a get. Does that mean every man runs around giving his wife a get? It means if the situation is such that the circumstances are not pleasant circumstances, and for whatever reasons the husband and wife cannot work things out, which is definitely not an optimal situation. People are in the institution of marriage to stay married. But if the situation is so horrendous that the two people can't stay with each other, you know, things will get worse if they don't get divorced. You know, probably more averos will happen. So the way to avoid more averos is to go and by making it a mitzvah to give a get. Hopefully afterwards things will get better. So that's the same thing with making a king. Really, it's better never to have a king. But if you already want to have a king, then there'll be a mitzvah, b'di'evet, to have a king. Or just like a yefas toar, a person goes to the battle and he comes back from the battlefield with a pretty woman that was trying to seduce, he wants to marry her. So the lo dibur Torah lo keneged yetzer hara, the Torah had to speak addressing the person's yetzer hara. There's no mitzvah in the Torah. It is a mitzvah. One of the 613 mitzvahs is how we deal with the yefas toar. It's not a mitzvah for every man to go to battle to have his eyes on a pretty woman to bring her back to perform this mitzvah, right? But you know, it's a rishus. It's you have permission is granted because of your yetzer hara. So you have a yetzer hara for a person when he goes to battle. You have a yetzer hara that happens in the institution of marriage. Unfortunately, you have a yetzer hara that happens in collective bodies of the Jewish people. They have a yetzer hara. And if they can control their yetzer hara, it'd be better never to ask for a king. But if they can't control the yetzer hara, and if you have a king, then these are the rules of having a king. That he shouldn't have too many horses, and he shouldn't have too many of this, and he shouldn't have too many of this, and he has to go to the prophet, and this and everything else. And then, okay, then that's how we'll have a king. That's the way the Abarbanel learns that. The Rambam clearly sees the appointing of a king as a mitzvah, you know, and according to many opinions, although if you really look carefully in Rambam, maybe you could see even not, maybe more like the Abarbanel as well. So it's not 100% clear from the Rambam. But as we'll continue to look at the sources, it's not the greatest thing as we see it. It caused so much trouble for the Jewish people. Now I want to just go through a little bit of from Reb Chaim Volozhin, the Heimek Dover, his commentary on the Chumash as well. I'll just read out a few lines to you. I didn't print it because it's in Rashi and it's so small. It's better for me just to read out a few lines. And he said a very interesting idea, the Reb Chaim. He says that the way a country is run differs from group to group, from nationality to nationality. There are some who feel that the best government is one of monarchy, and there's others who feel that it's better if people elect the officials. There's different nationalities have different feelings about what they feel is the best kind of governance for themselves. And there are certain countries that will not tolerate having a monarchy. For example, if you were to say right now, the United States government say we're going to now institute a monarchy, right? I don't think it would wash over very well. And other countries, if they don't have a monarchy, it's like a ship without a captain. They can't go anywhere, which is many democratic countries just don't want to accept that, right? But some would understand that it's not working. But you have what they call the will of the people. Okay, the will of the people, for better or for worse, has to be something that you contend with. And usually, again, it's for worse. But you have to contend with what you got on the ground. So therefore, to make this a mitzvah per se, to force upon people, you can't do this. You can't say that having a king is a mitzvah to say, is a positive commandment that all Jews must do. In other words, the Jewish people must, just like you must eat matzah on Pesach. You don't have a choice. You must appoint a king, because you can't do that. It depends on the mood of and the popular opinion of the people that is there. And especially when you're dealing with ruling a country and how a country runs, where that relates to sakonas nefashos, it's life and death issues, how a country is run. So, it's very difficult to say that you have a positive commandment that the Jews have to do in a way that they will feel it's inimical for their future. And it's very, you can't ask people to do things that is going to cause them danger if this will not work for the people that they are at this point in time. He says, "Lo afshar litzavos behechlet limnos melech." We can't. It's not possible to command without any, behechlet, definitely a definitive command to make a king. Kolzman shelo olav askamas ha'am lisbol al melech, until, as long as the people have not yet accepted it upon themselves to tolerate that kind of leadership. As if they see, especially when they see in other countries of the world that seem to do better without a monarchy, let's say. If the Jews look around the world and say, all these other countries seem to be doing fine, at least from a governance stance of view, with an elected parliament, and they're going to feel that a monarchy is going to be bad for them, how are we going to have such a commandment to have such a king? So, but if on the other hand the people see and they say, listen, everybody else got a king, it'd be a good idea we have a king, so then it becomes a mitzvah say for the Sanhedrin to appoint a king. And he says you can't say this b'chalal, no mitzvah over here, but it's like other mitzvahs. He says, just like if you want to eat meat, you have to shecht it, etc., etc. So he says, it's a lav upload mechlal essay. It's a negative that comes out of the positive. That if you want to eat, it has to have shechita. Meaning to say, you can't eat meat without a shechita. So if you're going to have a king, then that comes with certain rules. So the same thing, that only if you make this a king, then these are the rules that a king has. Okay. So then he gets into some other issue over here. So, but he ends up, it is a mitzvah, obviously, but definitely it's not a mitzvah in the Sanhedrin until the people really want to have one. And that's why he says, and therefore you had, for over 300 years, when there was a Mishkan, there was no king, because the people didn't want to have a king. And if you don't want to have a king, you can't make a king. And if they want to have a king, and they demand to have a king, then the Torah says, there's allowance for a king, and we'll make a king. So again, it seems as this mitzvah depends a lot upon the feelings of the people. Although you're going to say, since when do the mitzvahs depend on the feelings of the people? The answer is when you're dealing with the entire nation, the entire people. Just like a bezdin doesn't make decrees that they feel the people can't follow. Having a king at a time when the people will not accept his authority is a foolish thing to do. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not the same thing as the laws of kosher. Okay, some of them might not like the laws of kosher. Too bad. That's the laws of kosher. But if you're having a law that is a law that is a unique law in terms of the whole nation is affected by this law, right? Not as a nation, not as individuals. Kashrus affects the whole nation, but it affects them as individuals. It's not their security is not going to be at risk. You're not going to die if you eat kosher. Right? You hear the difference. You're not going to die if you keep Shabbos. The mitzvahs usually don't require you to die. Right? But having a king, he makes all the decisions. Who'll decide with your money, decides to go to war. So the people, for them to accept the authority of a king is going to be very hard, and especially depending on what you see in the world works at a particular time. We live in a history of the world where it's just not acceptable to have a king. It's just there's too many people in the world who do not accept having a king, and as we've seen already from the other sources, it's not the greatest thing in the world to have a king to begin with anyway. It's not like kashrus. Kashrus is extremely good for everybody. If you eat kosher, it is good for you. There's no downside to eating kosher. Having a king, there is an extremely big downside in having a king, and that's what we discussed last week. And therefore, the Torah is saying, really, only if the people really want it, then it's something that they feel they have to have. So something we have to give them. And if they, in other words, if they want to divorce themselves from Hashem, so this is how you will go through the divorce. Having a king really means you want to be, as we said last, you want to be divorced from Hashem if that's the way you want to live. So this is how you do it, and make sure you do it in a way that causes the least harm possible. Right? That's been the general consensus, and as we'll see in the Malbim as well. It's not such a great thing. Yeah.
Sorry, I might have missed this last week.
Probably did. Yeah.
What is the ideal form of government?
So we talked about last week.
Okay.
If you listen, you'll hear from. Yeah. No, that's why it's on tape.
Okay. That's too much to catch up.
Don't worry. That's why everyone takes vacations from time to time. People get a chance to catch up. All right. So now what I want to go through is the Malbim. And we're going to go through this inside because there's a lot of important stuff that he talks about over here. So, okay, this is, let's see if we have enough to go around here. You guys can share. I wasn't expecting so many people. And that's one. That's one. Maybe you guys can share. Let's see. Now, I have one more. I have one more. This is a master copy. Just give it back afterwards. That's fine. Okay, it's a bit of a long Malbim, but one is on two sides, one's on one side. It's a bit of a long Malbim, but yeah, it's two sides. Two sides. So this is in Perek Ches, Pasuk Vav. And we'll start, it's the one that says Pasuk Vav. I got a little arrow over there, if you notice. Once has an arrow. Where I didn't put the arrow in my chumash. Where? Right at Vav. Right at Vav. Okay, starting from the beginning. Okay, fine. So Pasuk Vav. So this was bad in the eyes of Shmuel. Vayera Dover. So Meforshim, the Bochel is the Meforshim are confused. Madua Ra Dover b'nei Shmuel b'nei Hashem. Why was it bad in Shmuel's eyes and Hashem's? It's clearly the Psukim said so. L'kasav Amrit, the Pasuk says, Kisav all arts v'yirashta v'yashavta ba. The Pasuk says in Sefer Dvarim, when you come to the land and you inherit it and you live in it, V'amarta asim alayim melech, and you say, let's have a king. K'chol ha'goyim, like all the other nations, or seriously say which are around me. Som tasim alechem melech. Appoint for yourself a king. Hashem yivcha Hashem l'kechem. Hashem will want to. Hashem says it's a mitzvah. So why did they get so upset? So Chazal Amr, if you look at the rabbis, you give a number of reasons why they were upset. Why Shmuel and Hashem were upset. Number one is they asked in a complaining way. This will all be explained. Number two, Shishalu Shalom Anasav. They asked at the wrong time. Number three, V'amru Zekedim Kahogan V'shalu V'amayarts Kilkalu. But the elders, they asked properly, but the masses, they messed it up. V'amru, and they said, really, that the request is really in order to enable them to have idol worship. And that we brought from the Radak last week as well. So now the Malbim will explore these ideas. So their sin came in three ways. Aleph, number one, look how he words that. That even though the Torah commands, or rather permits, the establishment of a kingdom, and the bracket says, some machlokas in the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda and Rab Nehorai, if making a king is obligatory or it's optional, skipping the brackets. Because of his the Torah makes certain conditions that must exist if you want to have a king. It says, Kisaval Aretz, when you come to the land, V'yarashta v'yashavta, and you inherit it, and you live in it, V'amarta shimalay melech, and you say, place upon me a king. Ratz alaymer, ki hakamas hamelech hechrechi el hakibutz, that making a king is important for the collective. V'nitzrach, and it's necessary. As the philosophers say, sheyichus hamelech v'kibutz hamedini ki yichus alev beguf. That the relationship between a king and the masses of the country is like the relationship between the heart and a body of a living being. Asher lo lev, which has a heart. And it is also similar to the relationship to the first being, which is Hashem. And therefore, the philosophers also say that a kingdom is supposed to accomplish three things. Aleph, ha'achtus v'heder hashituv. There should first of all be unity. Creates unity within the people. Beis, hasmad v'heder achiluf. Also continuity, and not of evils, because the kingship goes from father to son, to son, to son. You have a certain degree of continuity. You don't have things switching around back and forth like you have in democracies. Democracies, one day abortion is fine, one day it's not fine. There's no consistency. Right? So the king keeps consistency. And Gimel ha-yecholas ha-muchlot, also absolute power. Right? That's when you ask the non-Jews of the world, what's the reason to have a monarchy? Those are three reasons: to unify the country, to bring continuity and stability, and to be able to do things. Absolute power is important. You want to do things. You can have governments where they argue all day long what to do. They never decide anything. That's how it works in Eretz Yisrael. The leadership has absolutely no power. That's why nothing goes on. Nothing goes on. You can talk and talk and talk. Can't do anything because 85% of the people disagree with what you want to do because you only got elected with 15% of the real people in the country. Right? But this is all for the nations of the world. That live in the world, who go after nature. For non-Jews who live in a very natural way without a God, it would be understandable that would be the best that they could come up with. And also that's how it's good for Jews when their godly image is removed from them. And their conduct really was directed by the forces of nature because they didn't want to have a relationship with Hashem. So therefore they need to have a physical king to fight their wars and to turn the enemies away. But that's not the case when Hashem distinguishes the Jews from all the other nations. And it's not so when Hashem leads them with His divine supervision that's unique to them, and kings go before them with Hashem at the head. You don't need a king. If you really want to be close to Hashem, Hashem does miraculous things through all the time. So who's going to lead us to the battle? So what do you care about? You don't need anyone to lead you to the battle. Just take your swords, wave them at the enemies, go boo, and they run away. Right? Happened in the time of Yeshua. It's exactly what happened to Yeshua. It happened when Shmuel Hanavi was even there. They didn't have a sword in their hands. They were surrounded by plishtim. Hashem said, boo, and they ran away. They didn't touch them for years. You need a king? You don't need a king. It says, Vatomer, you'll say, Kimloch Yimloch Aleinu Vashem Okeicha Malkacham. As they said, Hashem, you rule over us. Hashem, our God, will be your king, our king. Well, Amar, so therefore he says, Kibaot Shetirash V'Teishev Esaretz, that when the Jewish people are sitting in the land, Shaba'ei Sa'i over Hashem Lifnehem Bakodesh, at that time Hashem passes before you in a holy way. Vasavikirbam Niflos, and Hashem has done wondrous things for you. And everything is happening in a miraculous way. You had no permission to make another king. Not disgrace, but we'll use the word disgrace the kingdom of heaven, to go against the kingdom of heaven. That's what the Pasuk said. When you're doing that, Hashem is taking care of everything. When we're living a miraculous way, what are you asking for a king for? Rakacha, Yerusha v'yeshiva, but the Torah says only after you're sitting down and you're living for a while. If you look at the order of the Psukim, that's what the Pasuk says in Sefer Dvarim. It says when you come to the land and you inherit it and now you're living in it. Right? So once that's happening, that's the time when they left Hashem. As indeed that's what happened in Sefer Shoft. Then the Jews fell into the regular natural way of life like all the other nations. Then it's either permission is granted or it's a mitzvah to go and establish a king like all the other kings around you. Since you are now under the natural order of things like the non-Jews. So now you need to have a king who will lead you in a national way. You understand what he's always explaining the pasuk over here? Again, saying the same thing. Hashem is prophesizing and saying, the truth is you don't need to ever have a king. But if you're going to come to Eretz Yisrael, and you're going to want to forget about Hashem, and Hashem realized there's a free will choice, and people can choose wrong. And as they begin to live, and they begin to believe it's their abilities. It's been years since we saw a miracle with Yehoshua. Right? It didn't take that many years even. Right? I said, well, you got to live like everybody else. So if you feel like you got to live like everybody else, and you want to have a buffer between you and Hashem, okay, then there is an option that is available to you, just like divorce and just like a Torah. That's the same level it's in. So that really is the parameters of that mitzvah. Okay, so now, Ulafiz, that comes out. As long as Shmuel's alive, that the divine supervision was clinging to them. And from the heavens Hashem screamed with a loud noise against the plishtim. The text says that it's the harvest now. He'll bring down rain, thunder and rain. I mean, Shmuel is saying, we can make Hashem do whatever we want Him to do for us because we're very close. So at that point, especially asking while Shmuel's around, shouldn't have left this divinely supervised time in their lives. And to put yourself under the shelter of a flesh and blood person. So what should they have asked from Shmuel? Now what prompted this? What did they say? We see you're getting old. And we see that your children aren't such good leaders. So the Rambam says, this is what they should have said. Sheyasers banav yoshavtim. They should have said, get rid of your sons as the shoftim. And you should be the leader again, like you were before. It seems that Shmuel was delegating some of the leadership to his children. It wasn't working. And therefore they said, we want you back in charge. It's not unheard of where you bring people out of retirement to come and, save the country or whatever. Because you were really good. The other ones aren't so good. So this now fits into the statements of Chazal. So they asked at the wrong time. They said there were three things wrong. This is the one. In the life of Shmuel, he shouldn't have asked anything. So you might, so again, so why didn't they do that? Because of course people can never live in the present. They always have to live in the future. Right? They said, well, Shmuel's getting old. He's probably going to die soon. But he's not dead yet. As a matter of fact, he still lived a couple more years while Shul was still a king. Still lived a couple more years. So what do they have to deal with Shul and all these things? They could have lived with Shmuel another 2 years. But what's going to be afterwards? What's been right now? That's always the problem. Right now Shmuel's amazing. Yeah, but he's getting old. He's going to croak soon. And then we're going to have nobody. No, come on. You ever be talking to Hashem? He brought you Shmuel? You don't think somebody can't come? You don't think in 2 years another prophet will arise? Right? If Shmuel sees that, his sons don't make it, and you guys don't want to have a king, and if you really don't want to have a king, you don't think Hashem isn't going to lead you in a way that you won't have to have a king? There in Shadam wrote, said, so the way you want to go, Hashem is going to lead you. But that's good old lack of bitachon. Yeah, everything's good now. What's going to be afterwards? It causes so much. It's such a terrible thing that people suffer from this. God, Hashem can give you a perfect life right now. But what's going to be next week? What's going to be a year from now? He's giving you parnasa now, but how do I ensure the parnasa for the next 60 years? Since I'm giving you right now the brachas. Right? But that can't be forever. Who said it can't be forever? And that was the first mistake. Just stick with Shmuel. I mean, do you think for a minute, Hashem, Shmuel, his mamish, he's here, you have mamish hashkacha pratis, and if you loyally follow Hashem, you think one day he's going to get a heart attack, and the next minute you're going to be totally unprotected, and police are going to wake you out the next day. You think that's going to happen? But that's what happens to people of little faith. They can have it as good as they have it now, but what'll be? Right? That's the ultimate downfall of the Jews. So now we have to take care of ourselves. And how do we take care of ourselves? Let's ask for a king right now. And that was the problem. Okay, that's point number one, he says. Base. Pogmu bazeh bichlod Shmuel. Second thing is, they insulted Shmuel's covet. If they would have asked for a king only for war, to fight their battles, that wouldn't be so insulting to Shmuel. He said, listen, we need a king to fight battles. You're too old to go out to battle. Give us a king to judge us. It's implying that they find something wrong with his leadership now, that they have to find a better shofet, a better judge. They had the chutzpah in front of him, Lomer, to say, Ki rotzim laviro mio shofet. They want to remove him as the shofet, to have someone else, and it's such an insult and terrible thing to the Holy One of Hashem, who did so much justice for all the Jews, to say that he can't do it anymore. And that was specifically bad in his eyes. It says, it was bad in Shmuel's eyes. They said, give us a king that he should judge over us, not that he should lead us into battle. And this now fits into the other opinion, that they asked with complaints. They complained against the Navi and also his judgments with the Jewish people. So that's the second thing that was wrong. So when Jews do things wrong, they do it in good style. They do it on all burners, they do it wrong, not just in one way. And it's not a machlokas, all three are true. It's not like it's machlokas, was it this, was it that, it was all three. Gimel. Now when you do appoint a king, it's in one of two ways. If the king humbles himself before the laws of the Torah and the mitzvahs, as you found from the righteous Jewish kings of old, and kings of the non-Jews who have some type of religious bent in our times, but you find people who realize that they are not above the law. If the king realizes he is also not above the law. Or you can have a different kind of king. who rules with laws, that is according to the whims of his soul. Like it was with the olden kings. They made their own laws and they changed them as they saw fit. Now, there's two ways of leading. The Torah warns the king that he has to keep the Torah, as it says. It is when he sits on his kingdom, his throne. He writes a second Sefer Torah. He much with him. He reads it all the days of his life. He shouldn't turn from the mitzvahs right and left. That's an important rule for a king. He has no permission to make up new rules in Torah. Next page. He can't change the rules of the Torah. Now look at the request that the Jews made now. That which the Jews said, give us a king, like to rule us, like all the non-Jews. There's two ways to read this line. What do they mean when they said we want a king to judge us like all the nations? One way to interpret that phrase is that it's we're comparing to the non-Jews to have a king. We want to be like other nations who have a king. That's the way the Torah wrote it in Sefer Dvarim. We want to have a king like the Goyim who are around us. But the extra word that was added, what was the added word in their request? That he should rule us, he should judge us. So how are we going to understand that? That he should judge us according to the laws of the Torah. Now, had that been the request, that would have been a bad request in and of itself. Torah permitted that. You can make a king. But you could still say, even within that request, that's an insult to Shmuel. As if to say the judge and Shmuel weren't pleasing in their eyes. That they felt that Shmuel's judgments weren't according to Torah. They want a better shovet. But at least it wouldn't be that insulting to God. But on the other hand, you could explain, we want a king to rule us the way the non-Jews judge. And it was, how much like the non-Jews do you want to be? You want to be like the non-Jews, they have a king, and then that alone? You want to be like the non-Jews? Or you want to be like the non-Jews, they have a king, and the king should judge the way non-Jewish kings judge. And as non-Jewish kings judge, they make up the rules as they go. Right? Not to judge as the judgments of the Torah, like the kings of their neighbors. They make their own laws and leave the old things. So then that's not going against Shmuel's covenant request. Then it's not a problem against Shmuel per se, because Shmuel was following the laws of the Torah. They would have admitted that they didn't find anything wrong on Shmuel on that side. He follows the Torah. Not they were repulsed by him, but what would it mean? They don't want the laws of the Torah. They don't want the judge to judge according to the Torah. That's a rebellion, and it's bitterness against Hashem and His Torah, not against Shmuel. That's what it says. What Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe said, not upon us are there complaints. Kima Hashem, but against Hashem. So now look how, so there's two ways to look at it. So now what did they really say? So the Malbim says, Shmuel judged them favorably. And how do you judge them favorably? If you have two ways to look, either you got two ways of looking at this. Either they're saying, we want to have a king, like the Goyim that they have a king, but we want it to be a Torah king, and Shmuel, you're not the one. So that's an insult to Shmuel. Because they want to have a king, just like the Goyim, and he should rule like the Goyim rule. It's not against you, Shmuel, it's against Hashem. Now, if Shmuel has to judge them favorably, what's the more favorable way to judge them? Against himself. So therefore, he thought the first was against him. They wanted a king like the Torah. It was bad in his eyes. For his covenant. He felt bad that they were insulting him. He knew he was a good king. So he felt bad in something, but that was still judging them fairly. There was no way to judge it perfect here. The request was not a good request under any circumstances. The question, how bad was the request? So he took it personally. Why? Because that would judge them favorably. See, that's how a Navi takes things personally. If he has to take it, how bad is their sin? If I take it personally, then it minimizes their sin. That's how a Navi acts. And that's what it says. That's why it was bad in the eyes of Shmuel. That's what the Navi says, because they said, give us a king to judge us. So then he turns to Hashem, Pasuk Zayin, Vayomer Hashem, right? So now what happens? Hashem says, Shishma b'kol ha'am la'aseh shalom. So I'm listening to them, do what they want. Therefore, you should listen. L'chol asher yomer elech, everything they say to you. What's something to say? Shama Sotrim, listen to the end of their words. Sha'amro nishpaten kol goyim, who want to be judged like all the nations. Like all the nations. Shekavonasam sheishpatem k'mish v'yamamim shemakodim mechefetz hamosh v'ritzono, that they want a king to rule as he wants to rule and not like the Torah. That's what they really meant. The Daik said how that implies Kim lo lezek kivnu havle lehepech to lo mechol game l'shaftenu, etc., etc. So in other words, there was two ways to look at it, and that's how he fits in the end. That's what Chazal say. The Sekanim asked properly, and the Amoritz didn't ask properly. So it comes out the Sekanim asked, they wanted a king the way a king should be, and they just merely insulted Shmuel. And Hashem says, but I hear from the masses. That's what Hashem says. He says, Shema. Look at the psukim. It's beautiful. He says, Vayomer Hashem Shema b'kol ha'am. Listen to the voice of the masses, not to the leaders. To what they're saying, because the nation themselves, they didn't repulse with you. They didn't want me. Right? Shmuel felt bad. Why? When they said, give us a melech l'shaftenu. He was worried because they felt that both ways, got to remember, both ways, if you're wanting it, remember, we said wanting a king, b'chalal, at this time, is certainly not a thing they should have asked. It was clearly a bad thing, no matter how you slice it, because Hashem was close to them, and wanting a king definitely means Hashem will not be close to us. So certainly a bad request. The question, how bad was it? So the truth is, Shmuel probably, who do you think Shmuel heard? Whose words did he hear? He heard the Zekanim. He only heard the Zekanim. So the Zekanim were bad in terms of what they said. We want to have a Torah king. But the fact we want a king means we don't really want to have this close connection to Hashem at all. And Shmuel, we really don't think you're that kind of guy to lead us. So it was bad. But we're not going to say that they totally rejected Hashem and wanted to worship idols. But the masses clearly wanted a king who would let them do whatever. We don't have to follow the Torah. And that would be a king who would let them follow idols. So this is the way Jewish history has always been. You have the masses, and you got the leaders. And you got the holy Navi. And that's kind of setting the tone for the whole Tanakh until we finish the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. You got the Navi who's always saying the way things should be. Right? And you have the fact that we got this king, which means that Jewish people really want to have a buffer between them and Hashem. Right? And even the leaders say, we want to follow the Torah, but not that close to Hashem. This would have been the modern Orthodox Jew of that day. They say, we want to keep the whole Torah, but Hashem, don't be too close to us, Hashem. You understand? Is that any different today? Is that any different today? And then you get the masses says, we want to have Judaism, but we want to make the decisions and we want to have a king who will make decisions based on popular opinion, and we will say, let's have idol worship. The king will say you could have idol worship. And that's always been the three layers of how it's been. And that really is the way the entire Sefer Shmuel, well, not Shmuel so much, but the book of Malachim really becomes.
Yeah, the puzzling thing here is that Hashem says you listen to the people. Why would Hashem say
Because you
that?
have no choice.
Why about
When the
Hashem?
people have rejected Hashem, listen, the husband
rejected
goes to the
us.
best and says, I want to divorce my wife. So we have to listen to him. If he don't want to be with her, we can't force him to be with her.
Well, maybe it's better to
You can't. You can't. If you're going to force a husband to get his wife, he'll kill her. Literally or figuratively. Get divorced already.
So then Hashem did that.
You blew it. The marriage, for whatever reasons, didn't work out, and things spiraled out of control. He wants to get divorced. Listen to him. You don't have a choice. And you know, the guy comes home with the Yafas Tar, the pretty woman. I want to. No, you can't. You can't do that. So what's he gonna do? So what? I'll go to the Reform rabbi. He'll marry me. I'm finished. So you got to cut him slack. Hopefully, cut him slack. He'll know that it wasn't worthwhile. Hopefully, you get to a situation. You have to deal with the Yetzer Haras that are on the ground.
It's not the first time Jewish people didn't want Hashem or anything, but every time Hashem set them straight through a Novi or through whatever. He said, but this time he agrees. You listen to the
Because you don't have a choice. If you won't listen to the people will just throw off the entire religion. They will leave Yiddishkeit and Ganzen. And that can't be at this point in time. All right, we'll continue this discussion tomorrow, Mitzvah.